Hey, Val. I'm doing great, and thank you so much for inviting me today. Well, it's a challenging thing. Ooh.
Change something here. Is there audio now? Can people hear me? Yes. Okay, cool. Okay, you learn something. Live stream, there's always something that goes wrong. Now I hear myself. Hang on a second. There we go. Okay. Yes, I was just saying I finally set up a newsletter for these live streams and the creator event that are going to happen in September, and then maybe another one this year, definitely one in beginning of next year. Um, but I have set up newsletters before and they never went anywhere. Like it's just like setting them up, invite a bunch of people, and then send like one or two emails, and that's it. So yeah, I don't know. How did you get started with all of this?
Well, I feel like it's been like over the years, it's been like an evolution. Like I totally feel what you are saying because I also like when I first started sending out newsletters, it was back then for actors. Now I'm sending a newsletter to creators. Um, And I just started with sending weekly tips. I always focused on like one tip, and I wrote like a long, in-depth newsletter. And I got like good feedback, but I saw that the opening was not very, very good. And when I spoke to people, I noticed that it came, and
Mm-hmm.
they kind of read it. They found it useful but very intensive. So I always like to like run things for at least a year, so I have enough time and enough data to like realize like from the feedback like if I need to change something, and I realized I need to change it. And that's how Creative Coffee was born. Cheers.
Yep.
Because it came out of the need of like respecting people's time and giving them like just enough information. So it's like, let's say they're like 5 minutes, they sit down and they just catch up on things that maybe they have missed. They learn a new thing or two, they get inspiration to read something further, explore something further, but it doesn't overwhelm them.
Mm.
And that learning came from like starting out and just experimenting with like no concept newsletter, and now it's like very like conceptualized. Like I have regular parts that I come back to, like creative news, where I sum up like new features on social media, and then I have a couple of other ones that I kind of rotate. And I'm actually now on a little bit of a hiatus, the summer hiatus, and I'm trying to upgrade it again, because like I said, it's been another like year, and I always like collect data, and I always try to like up myself and up what I do. So
Mm-hmm.
I hope to bring a fresh new perspective to Creative Coffee again from fall.
So what does upgrading a newsletter mean to you? I'm curious.
Um, to bring in I some kind of changes, either like to improve like what you put out there, or improve the form in which you do that. I would like to like I always try to like improve my writing, and
Mm,
so like maybe the writing I'll like clean it up a bit. I'm also thinking of like giving it like because that was like a very good feedback that I got, I believe from Wojtek from the slow growth community, that there is like a storyline that would go through it that's missing. So I'm trying to like find a natural way to incorporate that, and I'm like really listening to people like when they tell me that they would like more of something or less of something. So I have like a running document where I save everybody's feedback, and then when
mm,
it comes the
nice.
time to like improve it, I go back to that, and I'm like, okay, so what I can like pick out and just like improve it. So that's how it looks like.
Okay, so it's more on the I don't know, I guess like style and substance, and not like on a technical level or anything like that.
Well, I'm thinking of maybe like improving the design a little bit, giving
Mm-hmm.
it like a fresh coat, but nothing like technical.
Yeah.
Like one thing that I improved this year was that I set up like an automatic unsubscribe feature for like a flow that you can add. So it unsubscribes people that don't open Creative Coffee.
Mm.
And what it did is that I right now I just checked like before we hopped on live, I have 51% open rate, and that to me is
Oh.
one of the like most important metrics that I look at. I don't check like the number of like subscribers that I have. Like I don't obsess over that number because I diligently like delete people who are not no longer like opening my newsletter, and that on the technical side improves the deliverability because it tells Google and other like email providers like people are opening this newsletter, it is of good quality, it's not spam, so it stops falling into the promotions tab, it stops falling into the spam fold if people are opening these emails. So like that's actually like one like technical thing that people can do is to cut those people who are not opening and don't obsess over the number
Interesting.
of followers but obsess over the open rate.
Because I have gotten emails like that that are like, hey, if you still want to get our emails, basically like
Click the
resubscribe or just confirm again.
button.
That makes a lot of sense now. So, huh, interesting. Okay, well, I'm still at at a point where there's like very like only a handful of subscribers. So, but that is good to know. And that is actually
Mhm.
something I think that's probably the biggest mystery. That's like, how do
Yeah.
you even get people to your newsletter? Because it's not like a YouTube channel or whatever that's very public, right? It's like
Mm.
I think I'm pretty sure I probably found it through slow growth, right? But I don't know. What's your thought on that?
Well, you have to talk about it. You have to tell people that it even exists. So I mention
Hmm.
it on my social media quite a bit. I mention it in conversations. I mention it in interviews. So, like, just talk about you having it and what is in there. And also think about, like, when you are talking about it, don't talk about it in a sense of like, hey, I have newsletters, subscribe, but more like, I have newsletters for this type of person, and this and this and this is what I share. If that sounds like something you would like in your inbox, subscribe. Like think of the person and try to like filter them because not everyone is your ideal reader. Like if it's someone who actually doesn't like newsletters, like why would you force them to read
Right.
that? But they're so yeah, talk about it.
Hmm. Yeah. So you just have to make it public in whatever way you
Mhm.
communicate. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
And one thing that I also did in the beginning is I had on my like sign up page, I had like a dedicated page about my newsletter about Creative Coffee on my website, and I used to have an archive of old issues so
yeah.
people could check it out. And even though that's maybe like one thing I love ConvertKit, I love to use ConvertKit because it's a marketing tool for creators specifically,
Mm-hmm.
made by creators. The only like problem that I have with it is that on the web version of the newsletter, there is no design. So, and my design is kind of like
It's a
it's
big
an
part.
integral part,
Yeah.
yeah, of that. So people just got the text. So I had to make sure that I think of this, that people are going to read it like on a web version that is stripped of the design. So I don't use the design as a clutch, but that it's just like an addition, like a character, uh, so it can like actually stand on its own just with the writing, which is quite a challenge, but it can be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And are you like what is the newsletter to you? Like is it just a way for you to share what you've learned? Are you trying to sell something? Are you trying to, I don't know, build a community around it? Like what is the backbone of it?
It's my baby. No, it's my like I think of it as my love letter to people who feel close to me enough to allow me in their inboxes, because our inboxes are a place where we want to select who we have there. Otherwise, it overflows and it gives us anxiety. So we pick and choose. So I always put this like respect towards like people's time, um, like as my like number one thing, like with this newsletter. And the intention behind that is that I put in not only like my like experience, but also I try to save people's time when it comes to like the bits and pieces of content that's floating around that is relevant to creators. And I'm someone who has the habit of like reading about new features, reading about new tools, testing tools. And I realized that this has value for people,
Mm,
because I've had like one conversations with people and they're like, oh, this is useful, I wish someone has told me that. So this like, I wish someone has told me that, is something that informs then like what I put in the newsletter. I try to save people's time and teach them something without overwhelming them. So it's like value driven newsletter. And yes, I occasionally mention that I do like one coaching uh, for creators. And when I had like a beta test run of my course, I would mention it there, but I don't overdo it. I always focus on delivering value. And if I sell something, I mention it sort of like, oh, by the way,
mm-hmm,
in
mm-hmm,
case that's something that you need, because people need to be reminded of that. Because otherwise they just think of you, oh, it's the creative coffee person, and they don't realize like, oh, she's actually a coach for creatives. Like, I can maybe ask her a question or two on in like a one-one session, and I can help them resolve some of their problems. So like, yeah, I mention it, but not in every issue or something
mm-hmm.
like that.
But do you, I guess you do see results from that when you do mention it.
Yeah, people who have come to me for like one-ones, they have seen it repeatedly, and then they came, because it's something that also you need to take into consideration. Like, you cannot measure like from every single one, like, oh, here it worked because a person reacted, because the person has probably been in the process of keep seeing it, keep thinking about it, and in their life happened something where they finally felt motivated, or just it just right now was the right time for them to make that move. So it's really about like reminding without forcing, and knowing that people just have their time when it works for them the best, and that's when they reach out.
Nice. You're giving me ideas too, because right now the only reason I set up this newsletter was to make sure that people know when the event is happening. Because so far it was always like a piecemeal out of like, oh, I post in this community and this forum, and like there wasn't like a really good tool to make sure everybody's aware when things starts and where it happens, and then also
Mhm.
communicate with them afterwards. So that's why I set this up,
Mhm.
and the only intention was to be like, hey, make sure you put this in your calendar. Tomorrow we'll have an event. Would be nice if you show up. But now I'm like thinking like, oh, there's more we can do with that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
definitely. If that's what you are asking for a suggestion, if not, then
no, no, go
no,
ahead.
I would suggest that you take the time to repeatedly communicate that. And perhaps, like in every newsletter that you send out, let's say weekly before the event for a month at least, you, let's say, disclose the program. You
Mm,
know, mention the technical stuff, especially like towards the end, so people actually know
yeah.
what kind of platform it's going to be on, so they test it ahead of time, so they know like where to go for for troubleshooting. Just like put yourself in their shoes and imagine what is the information that would help you make the decision to come to this event. What would you want to know? Like maybe who are the speakers? What is the program? When it's going on? Where it's going on? And you can answer these questions like one by one in the newsletters and maybe sum it
Yeah.
up right before the event.
Hmm. I see. I completely forgot about the technical aspects already. Like, hey, just show up, and then there's always somebody having issues with it, and
Always.
that's yeah. Because I am in touch with a couple, um, I don't know, companies, I guess, who make cool stuff for creators, and
Mhm.
the whole theme is like back to school, so it's all about learning and what have you learned, and yeah, maybe once we have a solid lineup, I can send that out just to tease things. Yeah. And that's also a question that came up like, is there
Yeah.
some like what do you think is like a good frequency of sending it, right? Because there's people who send like an email every day, there's people who send it like every week, every once a year, and everything in between. Like, I don't know, do you have an experience with that?
Uh, the best frequency is one where you feel like you can consistently deliver good value for the person. That the person, like that you are not just like sending something because you set yourself the goal to send it weekly. But if the quality is crap, then don't make it weekly. Make it maybe once every
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks, maybe once a month. But really make sure that the quality is good. So there's
Mm-hmm.
like no perfect general recommendation. I would suggest that you test it. And I tested it with Creative Coffee as well. Like, what is the ideal frequency? And there is none that I would say
Yeah.
like is in general. So I normally, like when I send it, when I'm not in a hiatus, I send it every 2 weeks because
Mm-hmm.
that's when I learned that there is enough features that are relevant for creators because not every new feature is relevant for creators.
Mm-hmm.
And where I'm also able to have enough time to test tools. I have enough time to read books because books are one of the topics that I share. So I took like all of these things into consideration, and I'm still like I try to do it for a certain amount of time and then evaluate it. So let's say for these 3 months, I'm gonna post every 2 weeks, and I'm gonna evaluate and see like what's the open rate and how people respond to it, and how am I doing like combined with work, because I'm like a full-time creative person that works for companies and creates content for them. Like, can I manage to create a newsletter of good enough quality
Mm-hmm.
with this type of workload? So like consider your life, your time, your energy, and the quality of it, and come up with whatever time frame works for you.
Interesting. I like this idea of every other week because
Mm.
what I've done so far is like I just keep a document for myself where like could I write a newsletter every week, right? And keep track of like I don't know, new tools, what I've learned this week, I don't know,
Mm.
best thumbnail of the week, something like that. And it becomes this like this thing
Sure.
where you only consume things to put things in the newsletter, and it's like you don't even have time to process. It's like you see something and you have to immediately evaluate if this is worth publishing. And I was like, this too much stress, too much thinking about it. I don't need that right now. But with this, maybe this is a good idea. Interesting. Okay. Well, I already got so much out of this conversation. It's amazing. It's funny because
Well,
it's
I'm glad
like, yeah, no, it's like the principles are very similar to YouTube or Instagram or whatever platform you want to grow. But I feel like every time you put it in a different context, like your brain is just like, I don't know anything. But then like it's add value and do it at a frequency that makes sense for you and the
yeah.
people consuming it. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's
And also like don't hold yourself back by like trying to figure out like what's the best way to do it according to these rules and these best practices.
yeah,
Those are like
yeah,
fine to learn about, but ultimately it has to come from you and you set the rules, because if you are writing it too much from a place of like, oh, I have to do this, do it like this because this person, this like expert said like that's the thing to do it, you are going to feel this like resentment towards it, and it's not going to feel like your baby. And sometimes it's just better to do it wrong but do it in a way that you like it. And people feel it, I don't know what is it, but like we feel when someone is being like authentic, and when it comes
yeah,
from a place where the person actually cares, because it shows up in the quality of the outcome, even though it's wrong according to some whatever marketing rules.
yeah, for sure, for sure. That is such a good reminder. Um, so, and talking about doing things wrong and whatnot, you said you are, I guess you're using ConvertKit, right? Have you, is that,
Yes.
was it your first choice and your only choice, or have you like tried things out?
I tried several tools. For my personal newsletters, I tried MailChimp, I tried Sendy. I looked around MailerLite, and I loved, like, ConvertKit was like love at first try.
Yeah.
So I stick to that. And for clients, I also tried ActiveCampaign. And gosh, I forgot, there were like two other, but those were like big tools, like for big companies. And the thing that I found that's important for me is how I feel when I use the tool. And why I like ConvertKit so much is because it's very visual and intuitive in using it. I don't feel intimidated by the tool. I like naturally know where to click, where to find things, and I didn't have to go through this like painful process of learning it. So if you are used marketing terms, I look into the UX and UI of it, like
Mm-hmm.
intuitively, not professionally. And I just like, if I enjoy using the tool, like that's the one that I choose, and if it's able to do the things I need it to do, which for me was not only to be able to send newsletter, but to send like automated sequences, which means that, for example, if you sign up for my newsletter, you get a welcome email. And there I have like a little introduction, and I lead people to the blog, and I lead people to my socials. And I have a
Mm-hmm.
couple of automations like this, even with my freebies. Like, for example, I have a page on my website about online tools, which are the ones I frequently talk about in Creative Coffee. And you can either like look at it on the page, or you can sign up for like a PDF version for it, and you get a series of educational emails that explain like how to use the tools and what for. So there's this like whole like process, and I needed a tool that does that, and that does it in a way that it's not a struggle to set up, because I didn't want to spend like days setting it up. So
Mm-hmm.
ConvertKit is very good.
Interesting. Yeah, because I ended up for now with MailerLite because they do
Mhm.
even include automation in their free plan. So
Hmm.
so that's kind of yeah why I went with that. Also, GDPR compliance is like big on their
Yeah.
website. I'm like, thank you. Um, and so lost my train of thought. Yeah, but I have found some issues with it already, and just like using it for a week essentially, right? Like it's
Mhm.
I signed up for the newsletter myself with another email address, and it took like forever for the confirmation email to arrive, and I'm like, that's
Mhm.
not good.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I guess it's not that hard then to switch between providers or something.
No, no, no. Like, what you can basically do is you can download your subscriber list as
Right.
a CSV and just upload it to a new tool.
Yeah.
And sometimes the tools even have a feature where you can like click and you connect the two tools and they transfer it for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's
Okay.
usually with the paid ones, and I pay for ConvertKit. I
Yeah.
tried
Yeah.
it for
Yeah.
free, but I decided to pay for it because I just like it. And why
Yeah. Yeah.
not? And for me, it's also like I pay creators for creating a tool for creators, and I
Yeah.
like
No.
supporting creators. So
Yeah. No, I'm all for buying the things that you are using on a regular basis. Like everything
yeah.
the thing that a lot of people don't think about is like if nobody's paying for the service, either it's going to go out of business or you are
Mhm.
the product, right? And
Yeah.
it's like because that's the case with everything that Google does. You are the product. You're delivering them data, and they're
Mhm.
generating value from that. Um,
Yeah.
so that's always something to keep in mind. Just for now, it was like I pretty much every newsletter provider has a free tier. I think everything that I looked at, and I don't know, ConvertKit just didn't really vibe with me, or there was something that was like nah, whatever. Let me look at something else. But yeah, maybe I'll end up over there as well. We'll see. Um,
And you don't remember what it was?
no, not at the top of my head. It's like this phase where you have like 17 tabs open with all the
Yeah.
pricing structures and all the features, and you're like, in the end, it's like a mix of like, oh, there's one feature I really want, and it has a
Mm.
decent design, right? I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
because there's obviously some newsletter providers who are much more targeted at large companies or something like that. I was like, okay, this is not for me, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it was just a mix of that, and yeah, we'll see
Yeah,
where it
but
goes.
it's good in the beginning to just try and
Yeah,
test a few providers and just see how you feel using it
yeah,
because you won't figure it out by looking at the pricing
yeah, exactly.
page. Like, hmm,
No,
this could,
no, because I
yeah.
used Mailchimp in the past, and I just never really liked the interface they had. It always
Yeah.
felt like so hard to use.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I wanted to try something different this time, and
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see, we'll see. Maybe at the end of the year there's going to be a big release of a big product, and then I switch over to ConvertKit. Who knows? We'll see. It's all an experiment. This whole year has been an experiment, really. So
That's that's good. What do you feel like you have learned so far from this experience?
um, so much. I don't know. Can you be a little bit more specific? Because it's like there's
Well, depends like what were you like experimenting with because I feel like it requires a lot of bravery to experiment because people are often like, "Oh, I will start once I have it all figured out."
yeah,
But that's not how you
yeah.
figure it out. You have to figure it out by just like trying and testing things. And yeah, like for example, when I like experiment with things, I learn like, "Ooh, I can actually like do it in a way that I didn't think it through before." So maybe if
Okay.
something like that.
I have a general learning about experiments that is really, really important to keep in mind because where I am right now, particularly with this YouTube channel, Creative Ties, is basically every video is an experiment, which is really fun, which allows me like complete freedom. But it also means that there is no reference point, right? If you're only comparing experiment to experiment, it becomes it becomes a little bit meaningless, the feedback and the data that you get. So it could be really good to establish a baseline essentially, right? Before you
To have
like
like a
test things out. And like maybe what I should be doing is like do 3 4 videos that are similar and not just one, so I see a pattern more so. So
yeah.
experiments are good, but you kind of have to
Mm,
do it with a little bit of structure and also know what you're looking for, right? For me, it's right now, it's just trying to figure out the best way to grow a YouTube channel. I think that is really the point. Um, and uh, I have somewhat of an answer, but not very clear. And it's what I have learned is that some channels are much easier to grow than others. And that's actually maybe a really interesting point to talk about in terms of who is your audience and
mm,
how do you define that, because you're writing for creators, right? And I feel like I'm doing the same. I'm making content for creators. But I have learned that creators are a really fuzzy audience. Like it's not like if you talk about people who are into fishing, you immediately know who this person is, right? It's really easy to define people
mm,
who like to be on the water on the weekends and do fishing, right? You know what they need. But creators are like, they come in so many different shapes and wants and needs and experience levels that it's like
mhm.
almost, you almost have to like define even more what kind of creator are you talking about. Um, is this something that only I experience or okay?
No, I have the same thing because I don't know if you remember in the slow growth community, I asked what people feel the difference between like creative professional, creative
Yes, I
entrepreneur,
remember that
and
conversation.
yeah, and that's the point because there are like so many ways, or I mean at least three main ways you can be a creator. You can be a creator in a sense of like influencer, meaning what you are creating and what you are selling is your content. You are monetizing your content, and basically
Mm-hmm.
to sponsors or brands, you are selling the attention of your audience. Then you can be a creator in a sense of like freelance service provider where what you are selling are your skills and your time, and you are working on projects or with companies or with individuals and you provide them with a specific type of service. Or you can be a creator in a sense of that you have a business like an agency or a creative studio, and you provide a service that a group of creators does. So like and each of these three creators are going to be dealing with like a completely different set of problems. They are going to be thinking differently. They will have different needs, and it's tricky to like pin it down, like who are the creators that you want to cater towards.
Do you have an answer for yourself?
No.
Okay, okay.
Like I just like this is like something that I have also been experimenting this year like wildly, and this is like one of the things that I have arrived to like this point, because it also depends on geographical location, because I learned that in the States you can afford to be a creator in a sense of this creator, and also in Western Europe. But in Central and Eastern Europe, the market here is so tiny and is not taken seriously enough by companies like Facebook and Google and other companies. Like they don't have the budgets for like this type of thing. Like influencer marketing is becoming a thing, but it's nothing compared to what is possible in the US and in the West and everything. So like it also depends on the region, and that's yet another layer that I realized there is to it,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes things just more complicated. And I just don't know. But I think right now what I have more to share is with the creators who are freelancers, who are like monetizing their skills and selling
Mm-hmm.
services. Because I came from like being a creator. I used to have a blog, so I was like sh- I was like for years I was creating content for free, but struggled with like monetizing it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was in the early days. We are talking about like 2008 till 2015, when
Right.
it's like completely different. And and I transitioned towards being like a freelance creator and working with companies, working in teams, because it just made sense, given the country that I'm based in. I'm based in Czechia, which is a tiny country, tiny market. And yes, we do have creators, and yes, we do have creators that make money only with their content, but they are few and far between. And they usually have things going on the side, like either a business, or
Yeah.
they are freelancing, or a job. Like it's not a reliable way to make a living. So that type of context is also important, like when you are considering the
Mm-hmm.
different kinds of creators that you can be.
There's a little bit so much to unpack because one, the
Hmm.
obvious question is like, do you think this is going to change, right? Because we obviously see, hey, Florin,
Hey.
nice to have you. Um, the creator economy is growing so quickly and so big, particularly in the US,
Hmm.
and to a certain extent in Europe. But yeah, what do you mean when you say Europe? Because I still include the UK, right? Like content creators in Europe without the UK is kind of like very fragmented.
Hmm.
Um, so is that something that's going to change? And the second follow-up question, and the probably the most common question I get, either from people who want to get into it or who are curious about what I'm doing, is what language, right? For every
I know.
European creator, it's like, but what language? And
Mm.
yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'll maybe start with this second question, because that's like very good question for which there is no straightforward answer,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. Because the advantage of you, let's say, selecting a smaller language, or a smaller population, is that you can grow quicker, because you are not going to have that much competition. You might have like you might bring something unique, but when you go into English language market, you will have to start all over again. And for many people, that's like, oh, but I have built this already. Like, I don't want to start all over again. And maybe you'll figure out, like, oh, but there are differences. Like, because, like, culturally, Europe is so rich. And we like to speak of Europe, but there are like so many nuances within the mentality of each
Mm-hmm.
nation, that for example, in Czechia, if you were to have a channel and you were to use Czech humor, you can absolutely not use it in English, because Czech humor is very politically incorrect.
Right. Yep.
So there are things like that you have to consider.
Yeah. Humor is a huge, huge part of it actually that I never actually considered. But it's so regionally specific.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
If
also,
you don't mind, sorry.
No, no.
I'm
go
gonna
ahead.
jump a bit in the
Yeah, do
conversation.
it, do
Hi,
it.
like, just to hi Lenka, nice to meet you. Like I think we didn't meet officially also through digital means. Hi Valentin. Like about what you said exactly, like it maybe like doing content in your own language, it might offer you some opportunities. I'm thinking like over and over again, I'm from Romania, and I was thinking like I'm kind of sure that if I would do my content in Romanian, I would definitely increase my channel faster.
Yep.
But then I thought, okay, what's my target group and what are the limitations? For instance, I think I wouldn't be able to connect with you, with Valentin, or with other creators
Mhm.
that maybe bring a different perspective from a different society. And
Yeah.
I think that's for me like more important at the moment on personal level, and it brings more value to my content than limiting
Mm-hmm.
myself to my
Mhm.
native language.
Yeah, exactly. You made a really good point because even when you start like creating content in English, you don't have to like strip away who you are and try to become an American to uh, please the American audience. You can like very much own who you are. You can like even be okay with having an accent because it's and a lot of people obsess about accents. Like they're like, oh, I can't
Mm-hmm.
speak in
Mhm.
English if I dare to have an accent. But I mean, as long as people can understand what are you saying, you are fine, and you can always have like captions and everything. But it's a part of who you are and a part of the story and a part of something like the value that you bring to the table, the point of view, and I would definitely like use it when creating content in English because you have also like so much more competition. So it can actually be like a competitive advantage to have something that uh, people remember you by. Because like for example, with me, they can be like, oh, it's that Czech girl, and they have like a point of reference and some like kind of like mental shortcut by which they can remember me. And it maybe it's not exactly how I want to be remembered, but yeah, it gives people the shortcut, and our brains like shortcuts, so why else?
Of course. Have you tried to create content also in your native language?
Yeah, I did. I actually, when I started blogging in Czech. And then after like 3 years, because I lived abroad, I switched to English because I met enough people from all over the world, and our common language was English. And at first, I started with the mentality, okay, so I have been like speaking in English, but I haven't been practicing writing. So I'm just gonna treat this as my like writing a way to like stay in touch with people from all of these places where I traveled to that we met. And it just became all about like learning and mastering the language, not necessarily about like building a blog that makes it anywhere. It ended up that way, but it wasn't the intention. But I feel like if we start creating in English with the intention of just learning, we don't have to wait until we have perfect English, because the process of creating is the learning itself.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
what I experienced now, big time.
Yeah. This conversation really tempts me to like just make another YouTube channel in German that's like how to become a YouTuber or something along those lines. In a world
Well,
with
yeah.
infinite time.
Mhm.
Yeah. So have you encountered, Lenka, for instance, some people who kind of made the mix out of this, maybe speaking English and providing German subtitles, for instance?
um,
Do you
I
think would that would work in a way or another?
I see usually like travel channels doing multiple languages. Like one of the
Mm-hmm.
great examples is Vaga Brothers. Alex and Marco, they have a channel, but they invited their community to co-create in the beginning because they started their travel as English teachers in Spain. They started like English and Spanish subtitles, and
Yeah.
for the rest, over time as they grew, they invited the community to create all the other languages. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
As just the subtitles.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And occasionally I think I've seen them make like a Spanish video, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that sticked around. because English still is kind of like a universal language.
Yeah, because I think that experience has become a lot more common that you described, where you are from one place and then you move somewhere else, and you meet all these people from all over the world, and you just end up speaking in English, right? And
Mhm.
for a long time, I felt like so like alone with this experience, but the more I talk with creators and entrepreneurs, it's
Yeah.
become so common. That's like
Mhm.
I really like that vibe where you like just kind of fluidly switching between languages and everybody has this sort of international experience. Um,
Yeah.
but one more example about like two channels in different languages. There's a gaming creator I watch quite frequently called Call Me Kevin, and he started the Spanish channel and he moved from Ireland to Spain. So I assumed it was him just redubbing his old videos, but we watched
Mhm.
some of his Spanish videos and he just hired somebody to do the voiceover. And it's like a completely different like vibe and personality. And I can't speak if like the humor is still there or anything, but it's like it felt just so like what is this? It just felt like a cheap like dubbing of like a TV show or something.
Mhm. Well, I'm gonna piggyback on what you just said. I'm gonna use an example of someone that I saw. It's a Spanish guy, uh, Francesca. He lives in Prague
Hmm.
actually, and with Slow Grow's Soul, I went there to listen to how he had um, his channel, and he started in Spanish because he didn't feel like doing it in English, and he actually like created separate, like over time, separate channels in different languages, in German, in French, in English, but he always like hires someone who is even the face of that channel. So it's like
Hmm.
as if he created like a one, like he basically runs it as a company, and he created like one like mother company, where he created the whole concept, the like, well, he creates like political videos, and he has like a special way of doing so with like visual, like with animations, and with like heavy music, and like it's like a very rememberable, very specific, and that's basically like a identifiable brand. And out of that, he branched out and he brought these like qualities, how the videos are made, the structured, how it's branded, but he gave like ownership to all of these like different people, and they are carrying the channel, but under this umbrella of a brand. And that's a way to approach it as well.
Kind of
Hmm.
like a franchise or
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you don't
Hmm.
have to speak multiple languages and run multiple channels on your own. Like he actually like has a team of people who are like taking care of the things. Like he does the writing because he's obsessed with politics, like he does the drawing because he's really good at it, but then he has like people who take care of the posting and stuff like that. So basically he runs it as a company, and that's a way to like reach multiple languages, have multiple channels. Like creators are starting to see that you will burn out if you do it all on your own. It's okay to like create like teams, and create a bigger thing out of that.
So are you
yeah,
gonna
like it was
start a
curious.
newsletter in multiple languages?
No. Oh my God. I still want to keep it as my little baby, and like a way to have to build and have the back and forth with my lovely subscribers, because I know them by name. I
Hmm.
don't even want to grow it like too much. I really want it to be this like intimate way to communicate with them, because also another thing about newsletters that maybe we should cover, like even the question of like, why should I as a creator even think of a newsletter? And it is because social media, you can have your account hacked. You
Hmm.
can, I mean, they can change something. With the rise of Web3, they can decide that they are going to scratch this altogether, or here we are in Europe, where the European Union can decide, you know what, no social media for Europeans, bye. And and here we lose our only way to communicate with our community. Like, we
Right.
no longer have these platforms, so or everything changes into metaverse and whatever. And a newsletter is a place where you have people's email addresses. And how often in our lives we change email addresses? Not
I
very
just I
often,
just
right?
add more email addresses.
Yeah, but we still hang on to that like old
Yes.
one for at least a few years. But how
Yeah.
often do we
Yeah.
maybe start new social media profiles? Like,
Mm-hmm.
or how often we decide to no longer use the platform because of some changes and stuff like that. So newsletter is a place to stay in touch with people who are like really like the core audience, like people who care enough about you, and you care enough about them, and you create this like close relationship. It's like the ultimate community. So that's I hope that more creators are going to start to consider newsletters, big, and think of them through like the value, and not think of them as like what companies are doing, like, hey, spam, here we go, buy our things. Like that's
Right.
why we maybe have this like negative feeling about newsletters, but newsletters can be something else than spam.
Yeah. 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 I have one more question to something you said earlier. Like, do you actually have people like reply to your newsletter frequently, or you do?
No, not every newsletter, but sometimes I do, and it's usually like people really take time to reply, and
Did you freeze for you?
Yes. Yeah.
There, maybe?
I,
Nope.
I I thought that it's me at
Nope.
first,
Yeah.
but
Dramatic ending.
like,
I think we
hello.
lost you.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
There
What
we
did you?
are.
There we go. What did you hear last?
Um, sometimes people reply back to you. Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes people reply back to you, and they are like, "Oh, I've been wanting to write for like many issues already," and they write, and it's like back and forth, several emails, and yeah, like I said, not every email, and sometimes it's also like that someone reads my email, but they write to me on Instagram,
Yeah. Yeah.
or like they read my email and they share it on Instagram as stories, and they help me promote it on their own, and then we start a conversation based on that in the DMs, and we exchange messages.
Hmm.
So yeah, not every issue, but I do have people occasionally reply, and it's usually deeper conversations than just, hey, cool, thanks.
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
And
Florence,
have
in
you?
or go ahead. You ask your question.
Yeah, I was curious because now you're also having. I had to read a bit through your profile also before jumping in the call, and I was curious if you worked with creators, and basically maybe they were doing similar things like on video content creation, and you help them re-strategize a bit their creational process and maybe adding the newsletter. Like, did you see improvements, and how were those improvements in terms
uh,
of growing their channel? Or
yeah, I don't necessarily help like YouTubers, but I have worked for 6 years with actors. So what we worked on was some kind of structure, because they wanted to create, let's say, a series of videos, so they can showcase the things that they can do. So I helped them come up with the ideas, and I help them like know like how to work with these pieces of content, let's say on YouTube, on Instagram, and yeah, I like structured it. And yes, I've had clients who started creating content, and they didn't start creating content in a sense of like, I'm a YouTuber and I post weekly, but they created the series of videos and then they have gotten acting work and they were able to replace that content with real footage. Because as an actor, and that's something maybe like creators need as well, but actors need video content to show like how they can be cast,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and creators need to showcase like what they can do and who is their audience, for brands to be like, oh, your audience is our audience, we can connect. So it's all about like taking the steps to create content that gets you where you want.
Yeah.
So that kind of help I I give to creators, and it always like depends on an individual, like individual goals, because every creator has different options, or every actor has different options and different goals. So we always like um, figure out like what makes sense for the person.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Florin, have you experimented ever with newsletters yourself?
No, no, no. I was actually thinking about it. Basically, I have also another two brothers who are slightly helping me behind the scenes, but just a bit. Like also with when we talked about the vision of the channel and how we should plan it, we kind of made everything together on that sense. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one full time working on it and coming up with videos and ideas and everything.
Okay.
And they're like still busy, quite busy with their jobs, with their daily jobs, and we're thinking also to take it a bit also towards not necessarily newsletter, but we thought more about blogging,
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
which is yeah, in in the shape of writing, in the shape of text, like
Yeah.
some creating some content that it's in the shape of a text, because visualizing it or like just seeing my videos or something like that, the I don't know, in my opinion, it's nice. It's you can capture some information when you see some of the videos that you're looking at, but if you have it also in a format that it's, I don't know, on paper, kind of digital
mm,
paper, then you
yeah.
can also make use of it directly.
Yeah.
And I think like that people resonate more if you bring a bit more value into
Yeah. I,
to their lives.
That's actually a really good point that we haven't even touched on yet, right? It's like writing is a much lower lift way to like communicate knowledge compared to photos or videos, right? And that is actually
Mhm.
the main reason why I restarted being active on Twitter. So I can just take like little snippets of like what I heard on a podcast or whatever it is, right? That I can share over there in writing instead of like making a video about it or whatever. So that's that's
Mhm.
that's something to keep in mind.
And also to take into consideration like people's preferences, because even
Yeah.
though like we get very much massaged by social media, that oh, short video is now the thing, there are still like so many people who love reading.
Yeah.
And sometimes you are just like, I don't know, traveling somewhere and you just want to read. You don't want to have to like watch the video or listen to a podcast that takes an hour or whatever. You just want to read a quick article or at least scan the information. So we as creators, like since we already, let's say, create videos that, like you said, Florin, you can kind of like repurpose the scripts that you have for the article, but contextualize it into an article and perhaps like add to that. And you can add like, let's say, screenshots. Like I don't know what is your content's topic, but if it's educational in nature, you can add like screenshots of what are you talking about, and just make it something that people can really learn from, and you can add your video in it for people who prefer to watch a video, let's say. And it actually Google really likes that. It really likes when you are like cross promoting your content, when like blog articles that are relevant
Mm-hmm.
for the video have that. And you can not only like increase your video views, but you can increase your website traffic by people discovering you either through that or through that.
That's a really good insight. Like I didn't think, but now it makes sense with the cross promotion.
Yeah.
On it really makes sense if you just post. I think like all the as soon as you place a link in a, I don't know, a blog or something like that, is gonna make the connection with maybe your YouTube channel or maybe with your social media accounts, and then you're gonna get interlinked, and maybe you're gonna increase your visibility if that's
Yeah, it
one of
takes
it.
Google a while, especially if it's like a new website. It still needs to like crawl it and evaluate like what kind of content there is on the website and what kind of people are clicking on it and everything. But over time, it's like I would say with like websites and blog, it's kind of like compound interest with investing. Like in the beginning, it's like very little, but then it's like exponentially grows. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like a good investment on your like creator effort to like start doing this thing early on. Not be too discouraged that you are not seeing a lot yet, because like over time, it's going to compound.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I think that's a really nice way to end. I did put
Mhm.
the link to your sign up page in the description and in the chat. So if anybody wants
Thank you.
to sign up for Lenka's newsletter, there's information there. Also, I started a newsletter. Are we gonna see you on YouTube anytime soon?
Well, good question. I always keep like putting it off, but I would love to. Like, I would love to, but I don't yet know what I want to create videos about,
Good
because
point.
for so long I have been doing like educational content,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I would like to start creating something more fun, but I don't yet have the idea, and that's kind of like holding me back. But maybe what I need to do, the another theme from this call is to experiment and just make a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
videos and not think about it too much. So yeah, we shall
Maybe.
see.
Well,
Maybe,
we can talk
maybe.
about this maybe offline. We can hang in the chat for a little bit, but I'm gonna end the stream. And yeah, there's gonna be another one next Friday, and a big event on September 9th. All information is down in the description. And talk to you soon.
Talk
Yeah.
to you soon. Bye.